Hello, I'm Bill Wilson, Wilson Combat, and I'm here this evening with my old-time friend Ken Hackathorn, fellow gun guy, and we're here to talk guns and the old times and what the future holds for the firearms industry and a lot of different subjects. Ken, we were talking about your training with Cooper and starting to do some training. Uh, I know you've done a lot of training with law enforcement and military all over the world. Tell us how that kind of you know took helps you get to the path that you ended up on in life here.
Well, it's kind of interesting in that people often ask me when I'm over the last, I've been doing this for like 43 years, how did you get into it? And sometimes I say, honestly, I don't really know. I was at the right place at the right time. When I first started, after I kind of left Gunsight, I started traveling around doing these classes. The only other guy in America that was doing it, what we called a road show, was John Farnham. And we kind of crossed paths from time to time. We've become great friends. He's a prince of a guy, absolute prince. And but what happened to me, for some reason, because I did have a military background and I did have a law enforcement background, you kind of get people want to pigeonhole you into that. And again, kind of by luck, the way I got involved in the training those markets is people said, look, we need somebody this whole combat shooting thing is a new phase where we recognize it as real value and virtue to what we want. We need somebody to show us the stuff. Back then, there weren't a lot of the quote champion shooters out there to draw from. Not that many people were that well known yet. I mean, the likes of, say, Ross Seyfried was not really nationally known. Say, not like Rob Latham is now. So they kind of looked around and said, well, here's a guy that's got a law enforcement background. Here's a guy that's got a military special operations background. This is the guy we need to come in and show us what we want to do. So suddenly that started. And of course, what happens, you get invited to come one place to teach a class. And mind you, when you deal with that crowd, it's a little different in the private sector in that when you walk in the first day and you say, okay, I'm here, I'm going to teach a class, this is what we're going to do. Across the board, they're like this. In other words, who are you to tell us what to do? So you have to show them and prove to them that you have validity in what you're doing. And generally after the first day, they go, okay, this guy knows a little about what he's doing. And yeah, and particularly if at the end of the first day, they see any improvement in what they're doing, they're like, yeah, okay, I'll pay attention to him now. And then they warm up and the thing goes on. Well, after you do a training program, they'll generally tell somebody else. Say if you did a program, let's say for 7 Special Forces group, somebody's probably going to mention to somebody over in the 3rd group, hey, we had this Hackathorn guy, did a great job. And then next thing you get a request from there. So it's word of mouth. Back then, there wasn't an internet. I wrote for the gun magazines, mainly to get my name out there because you and I both remember there was a time, most people don't realize that in America, if you were a gun guy, your source of information was gun magazines. Yes. There wasn't TV, there wasn't the internet. Television, guns were a forbidden topic practically. So I wrote for the gun mags to help promote my name for what I did. There wasn't any money in it, as you know, but it got my name established. But eventually, word of mouth, different places, and same thing. I got a gig overseas, and next thing they tell the next sister group or brother organization, hey, we had this guy in here, and they get a call, hey, would you come and train us? So it just kind of snowballed without, in many ways, any structure. It just did. And I tell people, in many ways, I was at the right place at the right time. And so I managed, and as you know, there was quite a period of time that the bulk of the business I did was governmental. I didn't do much private sector, really not until, probably around 2010 or so. And I saw, not after 9/11, I call it the decade of 9/11, the business opportunities expanded dramatically. It exploded. But I was smart enough to realize sooner or later this money is going to come to an end. And I thought, when that happens, I'm going to be kind of hosed. So I kind of turned my directions towards the private sector. And by the way, Larry Vickers, we talked about it. I said, Larry, if you're counting on government money to survive on, it's going to go away. You need to redirect, and the private sector is the market. Boy, I've never been sorry I did that at all.
Yeah, it's a little bit like what Colt did. You know, they're there for a while. They were just, you know, strictly focusing on all military business and stuff like that, and kind of let the civilian sales kind of, you know, be second. And you know, after a while, when
Caught
military
up with them.
contracts, you know, slowed down, then they kind of had to start hustling to get back in the civilian,
Yeah.
you know, commercial business.
And you know, one of the things I tell Bill that, and that all guys ask me, what's the difference between training like governmental special operations or police organizations and the term civilian? I don't really like that term. I say private sector.
Okay.
And actually, the training of the private sector is much more enjoyable. It's much more rewarding because the problem with training government employees is there's I call it the factors of three. A third of the people there are there, they want to learn, they want to get what you got. Another third of them are there because it's another day on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom third would rather be someplace else. And man, they can grind you down.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, hey, when are we going to be done today? You know, or am I getting overtime? I mean, this is, you can, and they just don't apply themselves. Someone else is paying the bill, so it's not a big deal. When you switch to the private sector, these guys have spent their hard-earned cash. They've taken the time to come there. They want to get their money's worth.
Exactly.
So they pay attention and they apply themselves. And when the class is over with, you feel like, hey, I achieved something because I gave them my best material.
Yeah.
And they actually were out there. They were sponges. They were here to get it. Now that changed a little bit in that today's market is saturated with the trainers, and the messages sometimes are a little mixed. And I see a lot of people now coming to classes not to learn anything. They just want to be able to brag to their friends. I took a class from Ken Hackathorn or to say Larry Bickers or something. They're there. They want that picture at the end of the class when you're posing. They want that for the screensaver, for their, not really to learn the material. So it has changed some, but overall, I think the private sector market is more rewarding, and in order to get paid by governmental agencies, I can tell you the private sector classes are more financially beneficial because getting the government to pay you is a hassle.
Oh yeah, yeah. All right, sounds good. Appreciate it.